Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah. Let's continue, insha'Allah ta'ala, in the Lucid Word. And we have reached the sins of the private parts. Section 35, the author says, among the sins of the private parts are fornication, which is the penetration of the entire glands of the penis in the vagina of other than one's wife or female slave. Here, I'd say one's, because there's nothing for this to go back to yet. And sodomy, which is the penetration of the glands of the penis into the anus of a man or woman. Up till there, that is sodomy. Other than his wife or a female slave, it's still sodomy if it were his wife or his female slave, but doesn't have the same judgment. That's why it's separated like that. Not that, it is that, but doesn't have the same judgment. It says anal intercourse between spouses or between a female slave and her owner is sinful, but the offense is not subject to the specified penalty mandated by Islamic law for sodomy, which is what I just told you. It doesn't have the same judgment. So what's being done here is that the translator is, in a way, avoiding calling them the same thing, but not really not calling them the same thing, and it's okay. The penalty of willful fornication for the muhsan, free accountable person, whether male or female, is stoning with mid-sized stones until death. Ha, Sod, Noon has the meaning of fortification, like you do your tahsin for protection. That's fortification, the tahsin. I actually have something translated about these letters here and the significance of this being the name for this type of person. So let me repeat. The penalty of willful fornication for the muhsan, this fortified person, it means fortified by marriage. This means the marriage contract and the sexual intercourse that happens in the valid marriage contract puts that person into a certain status, a certain category, some fortified status here. So this one's going to be called muhsan, male or female. So the penalty of willful fornication for the muhsan, free, not slave, accountable person, not non-accountable, whether male or female, is stoning with mid-sized stones until death. That means the people will surround them and pelt them until they die. And they are commanded to not feel sorry for them. The muhsan is anyone who has had sexual intercourse with his or her spouse in a valid marriage. This, with his or her spouse, I didn't hear it. This actually is a question of mine. So let me look in the Arabic here. ويحد الزاني الحر المكلف المحصن وهو الذي وطئ في نكاح صحيح ذكرا كان أو أنثى بالرجم بالحجارة المعتدلة. It's not there. What's there in the English is not in the Arabic. So here, this part, check it. Just say, the muhsan is anyone who has had sexual intercourse in a valid marriage. This person had valid marriage contract and had sexual intercourse within a valid marriage contract. That's the way I learned the words. That's the way it's written in the Arabic too. So then, yani, if you understand those words, then you might be curious why it's open like that. So I had the question, is this condition here with his or her spouse inside that valid marriage contract? So then when I saw it here, then as if my question got answered, yani, something documented there, but it's not in the Arabic. So
Okay, hold it very quickly. In my version of the Lucid Word, it does mention a valid marriage contract. I think they
yes,
edited it.
it's not the valid marriage part. It's the his or her spouse part.
They've not. Oh, they have mentioned that. Sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what will be the difference? Take the actual definition here. I'll pull it up again. Here. Bismillah. وهو الذي وطئ في نكاح صحيح. The muhsan is he who had sexual intercourse in a valid marriage. So that statement alone doesn't mean with his own spouse, just means he was married and he had sexual intercourse. Two facts at the same time. Had valid marriage contract and he had sexual intercourse while having a valid marriage contract. So it's clear for you. You said, is this section speaking to the judgment stoning related to the ones who committed sodomy? We'll see. Hold on. You said, so he could have been married and had intercourse with another person via muhsan. So that's what I'm saying is my question. I didn't say this is the case. But see how you have to pay attention to the words. Yani, the way it's written here in the Arabic, that's how I learned it. Not from this book. What's written here is correct. So, Yani, there's a lesson here, which is you're going to read something or hear something, you're going to make an assumption that's not necessarily, it's not necessary from the words you heard, your assumption. That's how people fall into blunders. People fall into assumptions. They think they know something they don't know because they think they're putting something together. So they have to be careful. Okay. Is there any question here? So what I said to you, I said, just say the muhsan is anyone who has had sexual intercourse within a valid marriage. That's how you convey the knowledge as you took it. Don't change it. That's why you have to memorize your lessons, memorize the wordings of the scholars, and then say them the way the scholars said them. Don't say them as you understand them. Say them as the scholar said them. And also, I didn't say this is wrong. Did I say this is wrong? I did not say it's wrong. Tayyib. He says, however, for other fornicators who never had sexual intercourse in a valid marriage, so that's right, i.e., if the fornicator is a free male or female non-muhsan, then it is an obligation to punish the offender with 100 lashes, yani, for the caliph to do that, and 1 lunar year in exile to be banished. The offender is banished to a distance which permits the traveler to shorten his prayers. The slave receives half of the free person's prescribed punishment. That is, he is punished with 50 lashes and banished for half a lunar year. As for the sodomy, there's a difference between the penetrator and the penetrated in the case of sodomy. But now let me not go into that.
Shaykh,
Yes.
just to on the point of sodomy there, when you said there's a difference, right, in the judgment, but does it punishment involve lashes or stoning?
Judgment for who?
For the one who committed sodomy.
Well, I said, though, there's a difference. Right now, I just said there's a difference between penetrator and penetrated.
Oh, okay.
And then
Sorry.
I said, so let me not go into details here.
Okay. Barakallahu fiqh.
Amin wa fiqh. The author said bestiality, i.e., sexual intercourse between people and animals, even if they are one's own property. That's a major sin. That will get you damned. Yani, you'll be cursed. To masturbate by one's own hand or by the hand of other than a man's wife or female slave who is lawful to him. I think you would say lawful for him. The Arabic word is istimna. This word literally means to extract the semen. So that's haram for one to do by his own hand or the hand of someone other than his wife or his lawful slave woman, his female slave who is lawful for him, because if his slave woman is married, then she's not lawful for him. So she can't do that. You said to have sexual intercourse with animals, one is damned generally by the angels or cursed and damned by Allah. All I know is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that who commits bestiality is damned. Allah damns him. He is God damned. Subhanallah. To copulate during menstrual or postpartum bleeding. Copulate means sexual intercourse, even if there is a physical barrier covering the penis, like a condom, or to copulate after it has stopped, after the menstrual or postpartum bleeding has stopped, but before the obligatory whole body wash has been performed. And maybe you could use a dash here if you want to do it this way, so that it's more clearly a compound noun. Or to copulate after it has stopped, but before the obligatory whole body wash has been performed. So, yes. But the Hanafis have a detail there. So, what's here doesn't have a detail. According to a Shafi'i, when the woman's menstrual or postpartum bleeding stops, still not permissible to have intercourse with her before she performs a ghusl. But the Hanafis have a detail there, which is that they have a detail there. According to them, it's possible, there's a possible scenario where he could have intercourse with his wife after her menses before the ghusl. Or to copulate after the body wash was performed, but without producing the proper intention, or without fulfilling one of its other requirements. So then it would be like it wasn't performed. When it says here, or to copulate after the body wash was performed, this means apparently performed, was apparently performed, but it wasn't really performed because it was without producing the proper intention, or it was without fulfilling one of its other requirements, like she has nail polish. Even if the proper intention were made, but she missed another requirement. She made a proper intention but missed another requirement. For example, here, period, and then new sentence here. For example, if a woman makes ghusl or performs ghusl while there is a barrier that prevents water from reaching part of her body. No, that's not a complete sentence there. I assumed. Let me read that again. To copulate during menstrual or postpartum bleeding, even if there is a physical barrier covering the penis, or to copulate after it has stopped but before the obligatory whole body wash has been performed, or to copulate after the body wash was performed but without producing the proper intention or without fulfilling one of its other requirements, even if the proper intention were made. So I would suggest make this a new sentence here. This is so long. Even if the proper intention were made, period. For example, in parentheses, it is not valid if a woman makes ghusl while there is a barrier that prevents water from reaching part of her body. To uncover one's awrah in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it, or to uncover one's awrah while alone without a need. Let's look at the Arabic real quick. He says, وَمِن مَعَاصِي الْفَرْجِ التَّكَشُّفُ عِنْدَ مَنْ يحرم نظره إليه أي كشف العورة عند من يحرم عليه أن ينظر إليها أو كشف العورة في الخلوة. Okay, the translation is fine. لغير غرض. But what was it that I was looking for? It says to uncover one's awrah in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it. So this would mean, as you know, between the navel and the knees for a man, or for a free woman, all of her body except her face and her hands. Okay. Or to uncover one's awrah while alone without a need. MashaAllah. All right. So what was it? It says here to uncover one's awrah in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it. So between the navel and the knees of the man, all of the body of the free woman except her face and her hands. Or to uncover one's awrah while alone without a need. Yes, what's that? That is for the man just his front and back private parts, because we're talking about here alone in privacy, not in view of someone. So it's a different judgment. Because there's different judgment there, I wanted to check to see if it's different wording. To uncover one's awrah in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it. Awrah here is what? For the man between his navel and his knees. For the free woman, all of her body but her face and her hands. Or to uncover one's, then you use the same word, awrah, while alone, but it's different judgment though. Same word is used here, but it's different judgment. Because when you're alone, then if it's a man, it's just his front and back private parts. And if it's a woman, it's what's between her navel and her knees. Let me finish reading this real quick first. On the other hand, if it were done for a valid reason, what the Shaykh says, if it were done for any reason, we talk about nudity and privacy, for any reason, for the least reason. So we'll look and see also what does it say in the Arabic. Valid, which that's correct though, but maybe gives an impression of a strictness that's not there. The nudity and privacy, Shaykh says, for the least reason, it's permissible, not haram. Just can't be without a reason. Pointlessly being nude in privacy is haram. Such as to cool off, that is a valid reason. Or changing your clothing, or bathing, then it is permissible, as mentioned before. Okay, let's see the Arabic here. So let's see, the blue, that's what the Shaykh says. That's the Shaykh's wording itself. And the black is the explanation. So the Shaykh is saying, and at-takashuf, exposure. Meaning, notice here, actually in the matan of Mukhtasar, Shaykh didn't use the word awrah. That's what just caught my attention now. The word awrah is from the explanation. Shaykh says, and exposure. Before, who is forbidden to look at it? To look at this exposure, this takashuf. Or in privacy, meaning, or exposure in privacy without a need. Without a need. What does the Arabic say? لِغَيْرِ غَرَض. It doesn't say valid reason. It just says without a reason. That's the Shaykh's words. And then in the explanation, also doesn't say valid. It just says, as for a reason, doesn't say غَرَضٍ صَحِيح, for example. Like cooling off, then this is permissible as presented. So let's look again at the English then. So now here, the black is supposed to be Shaykh's words. The bold, I mean. The bold's supposed to be Shaykh's words, and the normal is the explanation. So it says to uncover one's awra. So I'd suggest just say, for representing the Shaykh's words here, to uncover in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it. So now it still works though, if you just want to try to stick to the words of Shaykh here. Because maybe Shaykh avoided the word awra here on purpose in the metin. So to uncover in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it, yani, that's not confusing. Or, and then what did the Shaykh say? You can remove this here. Or while alone without a need. Hakada. To uncover in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it. Or maybe even from looking. And then it's clear. To uncover in view of those who are prohibited from looking. Or while alone without a need. And then in the explanation. So, or if you want to keep this one's outer right here, then take the bold out. That's not Shaykh's words, that's explanatory words right there. To uncover one's awra in view of those who are prohibited from looking. Or, and then also here, these are explanatory words. Just take the bold off. To uncover one's awra while alone without need. On the other hand, if it were done for a reason, such as to cool off, then it is permissible, as mentioned before. So, what words would go there if you're going to use different words? So, awra, to uncover one's awra in view of those who are prohibited from looking at it, yes. And to uncover, now in the explanation, it says the awra, while alone. But it could be said, and it is in the Bughya actually. I don't know if the Shaykh used the word awra here, but he did use in the Bughya saw'atan, the saw'atan, that means front and back private parts. Uncover the saw'ah while alone, without a need. So that's what caught my eye. It was using the same word twice in two different judgments here. To face the Qibla, the author says, or turn one's back to it while urinating or defecating without a barrier. Yes, Yani, this is a correct statement here. But maybe a person doesn't understand it, which is to face the Qibla or turn one's back to it. Yani, either one of those. Yani, these two are equal. Both of these, facing and turning one's back, they have same judgment. While urinating or defecating without a barrier. Yani, those two have same judgment too, urinating or defecating. it means you can't face the Qibla while you're defecating. You can't turn your back to the Qibla while you're defecating. And you can't face the Qibla while you're urinating. And you can't turn your back to the Qibla while you're urinating without a barrier. Without a barrier means in the open land. So there's no tree there. There's no wall there. Between one and the Qibla, it's just in an open land. Or when the barrier is more than 3 cubits away. So that's too far away to be counted for you. 1 cubit is from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger of average length arm. So, or when the barrier is more than 3 cubits away. Remember 3 cubits. Or less than 2/3 of a cubit high. Yani, then it's too short, even if it's close. Unless it is in a place prepared for this. Meaning here, unless means here, facing the Qibla or turning your back to it while urinating or defecating is haram unless it is in a place prepared for this. Or unless there's a barrier between one and the Qibla. So there's 2 unlesses here. Really, there's 2 unlesses here. So facing the Qibla or turning one's back to it while urinating or defecating without a barrier. Right there. That answers your question, brother. That's the answer to your question right there. Barakallahu feek. Without a barrier between one and the Qibla. So that means unless there's a barrier. So that's unless. Unless there is a barrier between the Qibla, between one and the Qibla. But why this is a second unless? Because this means doesn't have to mean that this place was prepared for that purpose. Just means you're somewhere and there's a barrier there. And so you relieved yourself. Facing the Qibla with your back to the Qibla, but there's a barrier there in this place, then this is not sinful. So that's unless, and also there's another unless. Unless it is a place prepared for this, means like an outhouse or bathroom is actually constructed in this way. So you want to go relieve yourself and you go to the place that's prepared for there. You go down the hallway and open the door and step in with your left foot. And so it's just this way. So then you're going to face the Qibla or have your back to it. And there's no sin here. Because this place was prepared for this. For urinating or defecating. Like a toilet. Any object that is 2/3 or more in length erected in front of the person is a sufficient barrier. Why I told you remember 3 cubits? Because 3 cubits also for prayer lines. Being more than 3 cubits away from the imam or from the last line is disliked. That includes the women's line. The women's line behind the men. It is in compliance with the sunnah for the women's line to be behind the men's line, not far away. Just for your information here. Maybe some of the brothers and sisters, they don't practice this sunnah for a perceived benefit, yani not to be too unfamiliar to the people so that the people will not find it strange that the women pray so close to the men, because people are actually praying in a way that's not sunnah. So I'll remind you here the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ahya sunnati inda fasadi ummati falahu ajru shaheed." Anyone who revives my sunnah when my nation is corrupt, then he has the reward of a martyr. So now I'm digressing really quick. Ibn Abbas said that there was a woman who used to come to the Prophet's masjid to pray with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That means to participate in the Prophet's jama'ah. So she used to come to pray in jama'ah with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam. Ibn Abbas said she's amongst the most beautiful of people. A woman amongst the most beautiful of people. What does that prove? Proves her face is not covered. So he said, she's so beautiful that the people who fear Allah would rush to the front so that they wouldn't see her. And the people who did not fear Allah would procrastinate so that they can get to the back so that they can see her. And then when they would make ruku', they would look under their armpits. Or when they would bend over, they would look under their armpits to try to see her. And what does that prove? That proves that there wasn't a curtain or the likes of a curtain there. And also, in another hadith, it is reported that the women at the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were commanded to delay rising up from sujood, to take their sitting positions until the men had firmly taken their seats due to the tightness of the clothing. That's the hadith. The women at the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were commanded to delay rising from sujood to sit until the men firmly took their seats due to the tightness of clothing. What does this mean? What does that prove? This proves there's no barrier there. There's no curtain there. And also that they were praying right behind the men, not far from the men. And also there's hadiths about the connectivity of the lines. The lines should be for obligatory prayers from one end to the other end, wherever you're standing, from one obstruction to the other obstruction, like the walls, and back to back, not interrupted. Wait, not delayed standing, delay sitting, delay rising from sujood to sit due to the tightness of clothing. That means the men's clothing, not the women's clothing. Due to the tightness of the men's clothing. So it's clear for you? It was because they were sitting so close? Yes. Because then they're going to just see the contours of those men in front of them. Nah. So some of our sheikhs, they did say, you fear to chase the people away, you have an excuse here. And some of them, they said, this is the sunnah, doing otherwise makruh. And they're not relenting here. So be wise, Yani, be wise. So let's continue here, inshallah. The author said, to defecate or urinate on a grave, whether the grave were in a Muslim cemetery or was isolated elsewhere. To urinate in a mosque, even if done in a container. Yeah, this statement doesn't mean to urinate on the ground. It just means being in the mosque, doing this action. Or to urinate on a revered object, i.e., on what is considered Islamically glorified. Also, it is prohibited to urinate in a narrow place designated for Hajj or Umrah. That's a nice detail there. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he advised us to avoid what gets you damned. Avoid the two damners, the two cursers. They said, what are the two damners, O Messenger of Allah? He said, to urinate in the people's shade and to urinate in their path. To urinate in their shade or to urinate in their path. That means someone would do that. So then when the people would come and find that their place, their shady place has been defiled in this way, or that the pathway has been defiled in this way, then they would say, damn that one, curses upon him. You said, are we talking about the grave of a Muslim? Yes. Any grave, I haven't learned about any grave. Although, Muslim is probably not concerned with doing some things that don't have benefit. Is it haram if the mosque has a toilet? Yes. So what they're going to do, they're going to have it outside of the masjid. But outside of the masjid does not necessarily mean that the toilet facility is disconnected from the infrastructure of the mosque. Meaning, it's possible that the toilet area is just literally once you step out, and once you step through that door, you're just not in the mosque anymore. Then there's no sin here. You're out of the mosque. That door is a portal right there. You step right through a portal, out of the mosque into the toilet place. That's not haram. But if the toilet place is in the mosque, a real masjid that is not a musalla, then that's haram. For an uncircumcised adult to neglect circumcision after being able to do so. For males, circumcision consists of removing the foreskin covering, I think the word "the" is supposed to be there, covering the glands of the penis. And for females, removing part of the clitoral hood. The clitoral hood is a fold of skin above the clitoris, which looks like the rooster's comb. Rooster's comb is the that skin that's on the rooster's head, his crown, I think they might call it too. But it is allowed, according to Malik, to neglect circumcision, meaning circumcision is not obligatory by consensus, because Malik does not hold that it is an obligation for males or females. It's sunnah, according to him. Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Any question?
After sexual intercourse and before taking a ghusl, can a couple have another sexual intercourse? Like
yes.
Okay.
Amin wa fikum. You said, what is the judgment of excision? Excision? I don't know what that means. Wallahu a'lam. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.